I'm not going to be talking about the how-tos of social media tourism marketing, digital, or marketing in general. As I told Rodney back a few months ago when he first asked me, I'm not that guy. I dabble in the hands-on, work with our team, am out and about, and we'll take the occasional event photo and post it. But with everything else that I've got to do in my executive director duties, I just can't be doing that on a daily basis. I'll never be able to plan and execute that daily content that's required to engage our visitors and make our destination relevant in their decision-making process. But I've spent the past couple days here listening to all of you up here on stage and then through the interaction, those of you who are doing this on the front line every day, and I'm in awe of that. I wish I had time to do those things. But it's just not something that I'm going to ever be able to do. Instead, what I want to do is spend some time talking about the organizational structure and the culture we're trying to build at our DMO and really in our destination. A culture that'll ensure that we are constantly finding stories about our visitor experiences to share across all of the communication channels. I also want to talk a little bit about the relationship between the organization's leadership, meaning me and the board, and that frontline marketing and communications team that we have. And the things that we need to do to empower them to do good marketing rather than politically correct marketing. And you're going to see some examples of that in our past as an organization. But there's a flip side to that relationship. I also want to talk a little bit about, and maybe in Q&A we can get into it a little deeper, what I need as a director from the marketing communications team to justify our existence as an organization, to go back to the board, to the elected officials who appoint my board, to our tourism business partners, and even to the whole community. What do I need to tell the story that we as an organization are accountable, that what we do matters, and that there's a benefit to the whole community that's really worthy of our continued existence? Because that can be a real factor for some DMOs. But to understand where we're going, may help to understand a little bit about where we've been as a DMO and as a destination. I took over as executive director just over a year ago, October of 2013. All of the forward-moving efforts that I'm going to talk about, we've done since October 2013, and even more to the point, 3 new team members joined our DMO back in June. So we've really only had this team assembled just since the middle of this year. So it's been quite a fast evolution and change for our organization. But the background I'm about to show you is not meant to pound on my predecessor or the board, although it'll seem like it, and maybe I do take a little pleasure in that. But the environment that I came into was so unique, so foreign to what most of us that have been in destination marketing in the past decade have had any experience with. I think even those of us who have been around 20, 25 years will suddenly remember, oh yeah, that's what it used to be like. And strangely, what it used to be like was what I walked into a little over a year ago. So, witness, if you please, 1980s destination marketing in 2012. This has been the brand identity for Clark-Floyd County's Convention and Tourism Bureau, the Sunny Side of Louisville, for over 30 years. It's probably, I know it's the oldest destination brand unchanged in Indiana, and at 30-something years, it's got to be one of the older ones in the country. And it was developed with some guys sitting around a table after they had hired an agency to do some work. They didn't like what they did, so they all got in an office and said, how about this? And it stuck. Well, why the hot air balloon with the logo? Because we have a hot air balloon. And we have had a hot air balloon for about 30 years. It's been used as a marketing and branding tool to put out in balloon events and to put up at festivals and tether and things like that in the area. And as much as anything, maybe it was a community relations tool in recent years. But yeah, we have that. If you're going to have a branded balloon, why not also have branded vehicles? When I got there, we had 5 branded vehicles for a staff of 5. None of these were personal take-home vehicles. A lot of them sat in the parking lot or were used to go to a meeting or things like that. But so that was another investment in an asset that was considered marketing, which is a little bit unusual. So if you're going to have a branded, if you're going to have a branded hot air balloon and you're going to have branded vehicles, why not strap a sign on a Segway and see the balloon in back with the balloon chase vehicle and the van and Mr. Sunny Side and the Segway and put them all in your local parade? Okay, that's some of what was going on. Being locked in the 1980s model of destination marketing, advertising means print. Only print. Lots of print. I had to look at this a couple times before I actually figured out what the difference was. Enjoy springtime in southern Indiana, enjoy summertime in southern Indiana. The funny thing is, these fossil beds below the dam, it's a great attraction, state park and interpretive center, but in the springtime you actually can't walk down there because the water's too high. Take everything you have and wrap it up all into one full-page ad. Print a bunch of brochures and put them out in racks. And if all else fails, put your executive director on the cover of one of the brochures, because that's what sells your destination, right? Don't laugh too hard. You guys too have this stuff in some back room in a box somewhere, I will guarantee you. We all have. And if you're doing it today, you're sinking lower in your chair right now. But that'll give you some perspective into what kinds of changes had to occur. Many of you who have interaction with your board may think you're having a hard time getting them to understand the kinds of marketing that we're here to talk about this week. I've heard questions like, how do I get my boss or board or hoteliers to understand the value of content generation, engagement, and storytelling when they want to see hard-selling copy? In my case, the board actually thought that all of those warm, fuzzy, feel-good things were effective marketing. Of course, they weren't measuring anything, so, why not? Tell the story of what we're doing by showing everybody the ads that you're doing somewhere else. So I had even further to go with my board than most of you. Now, to be fair, during the interview process back in 2013, it was clear that the full board recognized some need for change. There really had been some community angst about the organization that we were living with. And so they understood the need for change, but I'm not sure that then, or even still now, a year later, they fully understand what that change means. This is an education process for me to work with the board on over time. Well, to foster that change in an organization which hadn't seen change in quite a long time, I had to engage in what I came down to realizing was a 6-step process to lead the board through, and I got to read this because I thought it was brilliant and I got to get it word for word, an incremental, thought-altering, logical progression that resulted in self-revelation. That means letting them think it's their idea, okay? So the 6 steps were, we had to write a marketing plan that like none they had ever seen before. We had to develop a community relations plan. We had to develop a human resources plan also. I'll explain why all of these. We had to have a whole new budget structure, a commitment to deficit spending, and a promise to measure and adjust. The sales and marketing plan, I had to write this in a hurry. I started it in October. It takes you, about a month to find your parking spot, the bathroom, and so by the end of the year, I was starting to write this to demonstrate to the board the kinds of things that we needed to do to be relevant. And so I found a great crutch with this graphic of the travel planning process. And what I did was I identified all of the online and offline touch points that where we needed to be present to be relevant to these visitors. And so everything from website being a resource in planning, social media being a resource during validation, the visitor center being a resource during the actual travel itself, I took all of those things and put it in perspective of what we do or what we should be doing, because many of the things we weren't doing. Next was to divide out a separate community relations plan. Now, why? Well, and this kind of impacted the budget structure too, why I needed to do that. If a vehicle was purchased and logos were put on it and gas was purchased for it, it was called advertising. And so those things that truly weren't going out to the visitors and part of that travel decision-making process, we had to back off and identify those things as community relations. Now, was that effective community relations? Probably not. But what we did was set a plan that had two goals: demonstrate the value of the visitor industry to the local economy and demonstrate the value added that the DMO brings. And so that was really the sum total of a fairly short plan. But I had to divide that out as part of that education process for the board. With the HR plan, now that we know what kind of marketing we need to do and sales, now that we know what kind of community relations we need to do, what do we need in the way of people? And so took a look at what skills we have, what skills do we lack, defined new positions, and we did add a couple positions to our roster. And everything was based on best practices within DMAI compensation and benefits study and a lot of the job descriptions that are available through that. Combining the marketing, the community relations, and the HR plans all helped to define the budget. And so we adopted the DMAP, Destination Marketing Accreditation Program budget structure, and that allowed us to then go through each of those plans and say, whoop, there's an expense, and build that budget under this whole new structure. And so we got all that done, all three plans in the budget done by April. And so that was kind of a continuation of that process. We made some assumptions as we developed that new budget. Our organization had some significant reserves. Thanks to several years of not spending the whole budget. I mentioned some of the community challenges. This organization was really in bunker mode at that time. And so they were really pulling in and not doing a whole lot. Well, reserves built up, maybe beyond what was prudent, definitely beyond what was prudent. We decided that we could spend down some of those reserves over even 5 years and not even threaten a good level of reserves. And so in answer to that community angst, in answer to concerns of our tourism industry business partners, we wanted to demonstrate that, hey, we really are going out on a limb as an organization. We're going to commit to investing even more than the revenue that's coming in on an annual basis to really be effective in the marketplace and to build our part of making this destination work. In order to have good community relations and get past some of those challenges, in order to get the approval from elected officials and the industry partners, we knew we needed to measure what we were doing and tell the story through those community relations efforts. We had to educate the board regarding what kinds of things could be measured and why they matter. We had a new team in place, so we had an opportunity to establish that internal culture of being a measurable, accountable organization. My role is to keep asking questions based on the information that we have available. We established a standard monthly performance measurement report to the board. Internally, we're trying to use that minute detailed data to drill down even further to take a look at efforts that we're doing on a regular basis and making those small adjustments through campaigns and learn from that data. Now I want to get into the dynamics between leadership and that frontline team a little bit. I wrote down quickly before I asked my team, I said, what are the things that I think the team needs? And so everything over here on the left, clear but broad direction, defined expectations, flexibility, and for me to shut up and listen. And then I put an email out to the team. I said, okay, what do you guys think? Top 3 things, quick, don't think about it too long. Freedom, guidance, professional development to build the skills, like being here, creative support and encouragement, direction and feedback, clear branding guidance, and the budget to match goals. Everybody wants the budget to match the goals. So not terribly different. There are some, there's some similarities there, but this is the note, the takeaway for any CEOs: ask your team what they need, and be willing to fight to give them what they need. Well, I mentioned earlier too what the leadership needs from the team. What I need to be able to go back to the board and the community to demonstrate what we're doing. And one is take time to think and analyze. In other words, give the CEOs and boards the confidence that you as a team or an individual lone producer of digital content, that you're approaching things not from the day-to-day tactical standpoint, but that you understand how that fits into the overall strategic direction of the organization. Be ready to answer the why question and to relate what you're doing to that strategic plan. Buy into the accountability. Trying to build that culture of accountability within the organization, we need everybody to understand why that's important for our organizations to thrive, survive, and why that accountability, there are best practices in place because they work. And so in order to be a destination marketing organization that matters to your destination, measure what you're doing. Balance the time between that fun, creative stuff and the data and looking at those measurements. Build that time into the schedule. And then keep sending me and the board ideas. You need to help us keep pushing the envelope. As I said, I can't be there on a daily basis executing this. So I need that feedback from the team. In wrap up, this is just one particular case study for one DMO that had some pretty unusual circumstances, to say the least. There are some definite advantages that we had, like the ability to start over. Most DMOs have been able to evolve into being a 2014 DMO. Well, we were able to scrap everything we were doing, stop, build a team, and start over. We did have some dollar reserves that were significant that allowed us to do some cool things. But we also, with the new team, we had less of the we've always done this or we've never done it that way. And so that allowed us to get into that culture internally faster. Our disadvantages, we still got baggage with our industry and with the community. We are still having to re-educate the board. At least one board member that really was old school that wanted us to keep that smart car because we bought it to put in parades. She left the board. And so, we'll change the culture over time one way or the other, I guess. And we've got a lot of catching up. So many of you are so much ahead of what we're able to do today that we've been at this since June, basically, what has evolved for most DMOs over 5 to 7 years. So those are some of the challenges that we have. And as we told the board, if Rome was built in a day, we would have used the same contractor. This is going to take some time. And we're having to tell this to our industry partners too. Our hotelier who wonders why our director of sales, who's been in since June, hasn't sent him a sales lead yet. It's like, seriously? We haven't even had a trade show to go to yet. So that is something that is just going to take a while to change. I did want to at least give you a little hint. This is not social specific, but this is an example of a campaign that we did put together for 14 that started with digital online network buys, leading to a landing page with e-news signups and videos. We did a series of 10 videos, storytelling videos specific to or responsive to that content that was in that digital ad. And we are weaving this video content, of course, into social also. But this is something that we were able to put together yet so far in 2014 and make some things happen. So let's roll that.
On the banks of the Ohio River, across from Louisville, Kentucky, is beautiful southern Indiana. Locals share why they call southern Indiana my Sunny Side.
We think we're the oldest continuously operated candy store at the same site in the United States. We know there are older family businesses, candy businesses, but they left their downtown areas and we stuck to it, you might say. Schimpf's has been around since 1891. It was Warren's great-grandfather that started the business in 1891, and we've been in the same site all that time, 123 years.
My father was one of the 5 children of the 3rd generation. He was born, all the 5 children were born upstairs in the apartment above the candy shop. So it was just a fun experience for a kid to have a family in the candy business. My late teens, I got interested in wanting to know how candy was made. I was starting to date Jill. We came here a number of times on dates.
He gave me a box of chocolate-covered cherries and long-stem chocolate-covered cherries, and I was about to take one, and he said, no, don't take that piece. I said, what's wrong with that piece? No, he says, take another piece. So I was about to take another piece. He says, not that one either. He says, how about taking that piece there? So that's how I got my engagement ring, under a chocolate-covered cherry.
We bought the business to keep it in the family. One of the really interesting things was to see what we could do to revitalize downtown and have a personal effect on what can be done in a community by somebody staying in business. We've had an effect here and it's prospered, and then we added the museum and the demonstration area. It's been fun to document the history of the U.S. candy industry, and that's what we have in this museum here. As I say, it's the history of the U.S. candy industry as told by its packaging and advertising.
They say children don't like history, but that's not the case at all. They like this kind of history.
Sweet history.
We give them a small town experience next to an urban area. So we have the best of both worlds. So Louisville's right across the river, but here we are, small town America. And so people get this flavor of the tree-lined street with the 123-year-old candy store on the side, people living upstairs of their businesses. They find this a connection to their own family's past. Because they see this connection, they're happy to find a little place like this. My favorite candy is a peanut cluster in dark chocolate with a vanilla cream center.
And my favorite is the English toffee. I don't think anybody makes a better English toffee than we do.
Schimpf's Confectionery, that's my Sunny Side.
That's Jill and Warren's Sunny Side. What's your Sunny Side? Find out at sunnysideoflouisville.com.
And they really are that cute, I swear. But that's what we tried to do, is find those real personal stories that we had with people that our visitors could actually meet and build videos and build a campaign around them. So it was our first foray as an organization into telling those stories and sharing those stories and letting them be motivation for people to come see us. So what am I doing to lead this DMO? Trying to give my team what they asked for. The freedom to be creative, all of those things. Keeping those in mind every day. And freedom isn't too hard because I am kind of busy with some other things. But it is what we do, marketing, and so I still like to be part of the discussion, but I also tend to just turn them loose. That's all I had. Thank you guys.